This segment, we're going to go over NBA teams that should tear down versus NBA teams that should build up. The first NBA team we're going to be talking about today is the New York Knicks. Who wants to take this one?
The Knicks have definitely been a surprise this season. I know Treyvon's smirking because, he's not the biggest Knicks fan in the world. But, yeah, they're top 5 in the Eastern Conference. They've definitely, surprised some people. Julius Randle was an all-star, improving drastically from last season. You still have RJ Barrett, who's playing really well. And their rookie, Emmanuel Quickly, who's a bucket generator, to be honest, and is what they need at the point guard position. And I know some New York fans weren't a fan of the pick at the time, but he's definitely shown to be one of the top rookies in this class. And to me, considering the fact that this team is 5th in the Eastern Conference, I believe, with like the roster as currently constructed, and obviously Randall's your number one option, I really think they should go for it. I think they should try and get to the top of the Eastern Conference, because the East is pretty much weak, except for at the top. And, the Knicks have definitely proven that they can compete with the top teams in the East. I mean, they beat the Bucks early in the season, but they dominated them. I believe they beat the Sixers as well, but someone's going to have to fact check me on that. But I feel like if they could get a star like, a Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine, for example, just the first 2 names off the top of my head, I really think this team could definitely take a step forward in the right direction, and I think they're in a position to do so.
I actually agree with some of that. I know I said a little bit earlier that they should tear down, but I thought about it a little bit. I think they should go for it, but not right now. I think they should keep what they have going. I think maybe they could flip some veterans to contenders for picks, which is going in a little bit of a rebuild direction. I think they should wait for the Nets to split up. I think they should wait for the East to become less top-heavy to a point where they're actually in a good position to contend. And then you sign that big free agent. And then you trade for that big player, and then you spend all of your cap money. Because right now, if you spend cap money on players just to have a team that's not going to contend for a championship with your Phillies and your Celtics and your Nets and all those top teams right now, I don't see a good reason for the Knicks to go all out right now when they don't even have anything to go all out on, and especially with the teams that they're trying to compete with. I think they should wait for the East to become less top heavy and these kind of super teams to glimmer down a little bit, give it a half a decade or so, and then you make that big jump, sign that big player, do what you got to do with the developed young pieces that you're developing currently right now.
Also, just to clarify, when I say go for it, I mean like either this offseason or the next to take that step. Like, that's what I meant. So it's like you were giving like a window. I just want to clarify. But Treyvon, you could go.
Gotcha.
So I actually agree with Richard on this one. I think that their timetable is a little more lengthier than some other teams like Boston or Philadelphia. They've got some more young assets. They've got some long-term pieces that they have at play. They obviously have cap space. And they actually have a guy named Julius Randle, who's one of my favorite players, who's attracting players from what reports say. So they might be able to get some guys in free agency. I don't think they should try to chase somebody at the trade deadline, because to be honest with you, the best you're going to get right now is probably DeMar DeRozan. At what cost is that really going to be? Because is DeMar DeRozan really going to elevate you past the Brooklyn Nets or Miami Heat or whoever else this year? It's probably not going to. So to me, they should wait a couple years, let the Nets fizzle out, because I think after the Nets, I think if the Knicks can build something, they probably can beat most of these teams, realistically speaking. But nobody's going to beat the Nets. It's not going to happen. So most of these teams should wait for the Nets to fizzle out, which will be a couple years. And then they should probably go in the free agency market or go about trades the right way, not chase guys. But I think the timetable is more like 4 or 5 years, if I'm being honest.
And the next team we're going to go over is the Sacramento Kings. Same exact question. Go up or rebuild?
Tear it down. the Kings. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking in the free agency when they decided to give all these contracts to win now players, and keeping Hassan Whiteside, Nemanja Bjelica, Harrison Barnes. They got off to a good start this season. Of course, I mean they were like, I believe, like a 6-7 seed through like 15 games, but then they went on that long losing streak, and they just haven't really recovered from that. And I really feel bad for De'Aaron Fox. I mean, he's one of my favorite players in the league, and he's suffering in Sacramento. And unfortunately, he's probably gonna have to suffer a little bit more because they need to rebuild. Like, they need to rebuild around him, Halliburton, and Holmes, right? Their three best young players, and try to like build something over the next few years, accumulate picks, accumulate young players, take on people you believe that could develop. And notice how I didn't put Marvin Bagley in there because his future is very uncertain, and I really think they should trade him. It's unfortunate that it didn't work out for them. And this team, they just need to commit to one thing, because right now I feel like they're just stuck in the middle. Like, they think they can sneak in the A seed, but that's not really going to happen. So they might as well just tear it down, 4 or 5 year rebuild, and hopefully you can get in time for the playoffs by the middle of the decade.
And sneaking in to the 8th seed as a Pistons fan is not a place that you want to be in as a franchise. Especially, I guess, for Sacramento, I guess you could say your thought process is, I guess we're young, so our guys will develop more, and the 8th seed could turn into 7 and, up from there. But that's not going to happen, because you have a lot of big contracts to win now players, and your whole team isn't young. It would be a different scenario if you're like your whole starting lineup and a bunch of bench guys were 25 and less, but that's not the case. You have aging guys like Harrison Barnes on your team that you mentioned earlier, and Marvin Bagley's development, he's young, but his development is uncertain. So with the Sacramento Kings, there's too much of I don't knows and risk to take here, and spending all that money on barely sneaking into the playoffs, if they can get there, is pretty much nonsense. So if I'm Sacramento, I keep Fox, Halliburton, and Holmes. I keep them around. Buddy Hield's big old contract is going to have to stay there, because they're not going to get rid of Buddy Hield's contract for anything better than Buddy Hield, so they're just going to have to ride that out. But I say you just get rid of the veterans that you have now to contenders. Try to get some late first round picks, maybe some cheaper young guys if that's possible. Maybe like you can pull off a deal to the Lakers, like Harrison Barnes for Talen Horton-Tucker or something like that, if you want to manage that. Just an idea. But for the Kings, I say you just tear it down. You have 3 young guys. Draft some wings in the draft. You get your center, you get your guards. Fill out the 3 and 4 spot and work from there.
I agree with both of you guys. The Kings have pretty much, since they drafted De'Aaron Fox, been stuck in the middle. They've tried to contend, I would say, I think we can all agree, the last 2 to 3 years. With the moves they've made, at least, they've shown those indications. When you sign a guy like Harrison Barnes, or not really sign, but when you trade for a guy like Harrison Barnes, at least, okay, you're having the indications of you're trying to win now. That's not a guy that you get. That's not a guy that you acquire to rebuild. That's not the mantra. That's not the way that you do things in the NBA. So when you have a bunch of those types of players on your team, and you have veterans like Corey Joseph and Nemanja Bjelica, who's 31, and you sign Hassan Whiteside, who gets 10 minutes a game anyway, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to win when you're really not that much better than the Timberwolves and the Rockets and all these other teams that, to be quite honest with you, also need to rebuild. And they should try to trade Buddy Hield. They probably won't be able to. I honestly think they can make a backcourt of Fox, Hield, and Halliburton work. I just think they need to decipher which guy is coming off the bench between Hield and Halliburton, because I think Halliburton coming off the bench has played phenomenally well. He still averages 30 minutes a game, and he puts up 15 points and like 6 or 7 assists a game. I mean, he's one of the best wing defenders in the league almost already. He's pretty good. I mean, super underrated. I came into the draft, I said he was a top 5 player. In the draft, I honestly felt like the Warriors or Cavs, maybe even the Cavs, the Bulls, those teams should have taken a look at Halliburton and none of them took him. The Knicks, I thought the Knicks should have taken him, and the Knicks didn't take him. So that's the risk that you take when you don't take a guy like that. And he fell into the Kings' lap, and that's a good thing because I think a Fox Halliburton backcourt is going to dominate the league, down the road. But the Kings have to be able to build around that backcourt, and in order to do that, they're going to have to take this team and basically, from the top all the way down to the bottom, they're going to have to tear it down, and you're going to have to basically keep the foundation that you have, which is your center. You have to keep Rashawn Holmes because he's probably your most consistent big man that you have. And he's the one that plays the most. And Marvin Bagley, you're going to have to get rid of because the thing that everybody looks at is the Kings took Marvin Bagley ahead of Luka Doncic. That's what it comes down to. So, and he hasn't developed one bit. He has not produced anything sporadically better. So, and he wants out. His father's expressed that. It sounds like he's expressed that. You have to get rid of him. A change of scenery, I think, is good for him and the franchise. So there's several moves that the Kings can make to make them better.
Moving on to our last final team of the day, the San Antonio Spurs. Same exact question, up or down?
I think they should rebuild because right now I know that they're in good playoff positioning, which not really a lot of people expected that. Their young players are definitely taking a lead, but I love DeJounte Murray, I love Derek White, Lonnie Walker, obviously DeMar DeRozan has been phenomenal this season. Even Jakob Poeltl, he's been playing well, but I don't know if they can do damage in the playoffs considering, the team, doesn't have a lot of firepower. They have some good young players, will play good, sound, fundamental basketball, but I don't think they can do damage in the playoffs. And especially in how tough the West is and how tough it's going to be for the next 3-4 years, you're going to need to develop some firepower to be able to compete with that. So for now, I'd say trade DeRozan because his value's at his peak right now. So see what you can get for him. You could probably get a team to overpay, get some young players, get some picks, so you could rebuild for the future. Obviously keep said, Murray, White, and Lonnie Walker if you can, and Devin Vassell, of course. Keep them, rebuild something, because I don't think they can compete in the West as currently constructed. So rebuilding would probably be the best option for them here.
I would say that too. And the thing with the Spurs is they don't have to do much at all to rebuild. All they have to do is get rid of DeRozan and get rid of Aldridge to a contender and get a late first round pick back. That's all the San Antonio Spurs have to do. You have your young guys. Trading DeRozan and Aldridge allows for your young guys to get more minutes and develop more. And it also allows for a worse position in the standings and a better draft pick. And it just sets you up very well because you're not paying these young guys a lot right now. So cap space really isn't a worry. You're going to have money to work with. You're going to have picks to work with. And you're probably going to have assets to work with. And having all three of those things is amazing, especially when you're under Greg Popovich for however long he's going to be there. But even the assistant coaches there are mentored by Greg Popovich himself. So obviously, I don't think the assistants are going to be as good as Greg Popovich, but they could have some qualities from him that would allow the San Antonio Spurs to be a good team in the upcoming years. But for the San Antonio Spurs, it's pretty simple. You get rid of your top guys. You tank for a couple seasons, even though they're still going to be like a competitive team. They're going to have a bad record, but they're going to dogfight you, if you get what I mean. So I say you do that. You let your young guys develop. You draft more solid players, wherever that might be. You hope one of them hits. Maybe you even get like an all-star quality player. From there, you can use the cap space you have, retain your rookies, maybe sign a 75% max player. Obviously, they're probably not going to get like a Anthony Davis or a Luka Doncic or a Giannis, but you sign a 75% max player, if you get what I'm talking about, like a mid-bench all-star type of area. And honestly, San Antonio Spurs will be very dangerous if they decide to do that.
So I think priority one, which has already been reported, it's already out there, get rid of Aldridge. That's, that should be done because he's not really producing. I think DeRozan, I think he has a year. I think this is the final year of his deal. I honestly think just letting him play it out is fine. because I think what they can then do, you can just sign and trade him to whatever team he wants to go to next year. So I think that's a very plausible option for San Antonio. And I know they don't really do that much in their franchise, but it's something that they need to look towards doing. Like, they need to get with the modern times, if you know what I'm saying. So another couple guys that they need to get rid of. Rudy Gay makes about $12-13 million off their bench, and he's in his 30s. And Patty Mills, same age, same contract length, same salary, same area. So they have some veterans that have been there for a while. They know the Spurs way, but clearing all those guys will allow Murray, White, Johnson, and Vassell to eat up all those minutes and develop. And then you have Jakob Poeltl and Trey Lyles, both as young big men who can then develop as the next, we'll say not great Spurs big men, but they're pretty solid Spurs players right now. And I know the Spurs usually hit on their draft picks. So I like what they're doing right now, and I like their team a lot. I will say they're not real savvy in free agencies, which is why they have to hit on their draft picks. So I don't think there's a whole lot that the Spurs really have to do here.
For more creative, informative, and high-quality sports content, make sure to follow Phenom on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as all of the Phenom podcast channels for each sport. The link tree in the episode description includes a direct link to all of the aforementioned platforms, so click on that to access everything. Phenom boasts a team of over 100 youth contributors from around the world, covering every sport on every media platform. If you are interested in potentially joining the Phenom team as a writer or content creator, send an email to cole@phenommedia.net showing your interest. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow the channel. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.